Please welcome ABC World News weekend anchor David Muir.
Hey guys, Anna, John, Landon, and Ellis. And what's the baby's name?
Katie.
Katie. Well, how appropriate this royal year, yeah? Okay.
David, can you explain the challenge for us?
Yeah, it's a very simple question, and in fact, your entire audience here today and everybody watching at home can ask themselves the same question. How much of what's in your home is actually made in America? And do we even ask ourselves this question anymore? I think in the 1950s, 9 out of 10 items we purchased were all made in America.
Wow.
Today, more than half of what we buy is foreign made. And the question is, could we create jobs in this country if we just all bought a little more that was made right here in this country? Economists across the board say we could. If we all spent $64 they throw out, which would be about $20 billion over the next year, $64 per American, we could create 200,000 jobs immediately. It wouldn't throw off global trade, but we could make a difference in this country right now if we just flipped the items over in our home and asked ourselves, where was this made?
Well, what was so exciting about watching this is, and by the time you looked at everything that was not made in America, your house was empty.
Our house was empty. We come back in to find out that there's a vase with hydrangeas left in our living room.
Everything else was...
And then they never invited me back again.
We said, get back in and furnish it.
That was the big challenge, though, Barbara, is that they got on the phone and they started calling all of these companies across the country. And people answered the phone. The customer service representatives didn't even know how to answer that question when you say, do you have a coffee maker made in America?
Right. Okay. Here, we're going to start in the living room.
Yeah, this
so
is
tell
our
us where
attempt
we tell us where we
This is
started.
the living room before.
Okay.
This is the Usury family home in Dallas. And this is us sort of moving everything in. This is after. This is the American living room. We were able to replace everything in that room. It was not easy, though.
And now, can we go to the kitchen?
Yeah, we can do the kitchen next. This is where they were gasping. All we left was the kitchen sink. You know the saying. Well, that was literal. And look, we were able to replace the kitchen. And there was a challenge there because the appliances had to be completely made in America, so they're high-end and expensive. So we're looking for solutions half made in America, perhaps.
It's one of the reasons that people buy from abroad is that it's cheaper.
Yes, and that's the main reason, Barbara. You know, people can find things that are cheaply made and durable, and they're going to make their paycheck last as far as they can. And why wouldn't we? That's what we all need to do.
But that
No TVs made in America?
No televisions in America. It's incredible,
so
yeah.
Everybody's going, you must buy a foreign-made TV.
We must buy light bulbs. We couldn't find any light bulbs in this country.
America?
A baseball, an American baseball for Landon, we couldn't find. And there are some, economists will tell you, we don't want to be the sock maker for the world. We don't need to make the baseballs, perhaps, but we need to make the higher-end items, the next TV, the one that combines the internet and on-demand, and the items that take a number of people behind the scenes to make them. She's whispering, American Girl doll. We had to break the news. Can you tell the audience, where's your American Girl doll made?
China.
American Girl doll is made in China. Well,
Cover your ears, Katie.
Is this a realistic challenge that families across the states
I think
can
it is, and here's why. And this is the premise. The pool of economists that worked on this series with us said it's just an item or two over the next year. It's not emptying your home like the Usurys did. They were very brave to allow us to do this, but it was really just the notion to think about the lamp or the end table. Can't find it. And what did you all think? I mean, the house afterward.
It looks great. The American-made replacements are comfortable, they're durable, and they're beautiful.
That's excellent.
Yes.
For all of us, it really is. You know, it's an excellent challenge, and it's a great awareness for everybody out there. We want to thank you all.
Of ABC World News, David Muir. Hello, David. Welcome.
This is so new for me. You know,
I know.
We don't have anyone in the studio.
I know.
I talk to a robotic camera, so
That's
this is kind of
right.
nice having human beings.
That's right, and they will respond, Bev.
Yes.
Speaking of response, you were in D.C. this past weekend covering the President Obama's inauguration, and you didn't come home empty-handed, did you?
Not for the ladies. You know, we've been doing this on World News, this Made in America reporting for the last year and a half or so. They say that if every American bought just one thing, $66 over the next year, we'd create 200,000 jobs now.
Okay.
So we came here a couple of weeks ago.
One item for $66?
Just one thing over the next year.
Or just spend over the course of the year $66 on products
On American
that are.
products.
Right.
Yeah, we can create jobs right away.
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
So it's not a big deal. You don't have to turn your house upside down, which we've done on World News. You saw that. You saw that.
Yeah.
But Whoopi and Sherry, you both bought American for Christmas, a couple of items.
How about toys for Ashley?
So I was looking at I thought since it's the presidential inauguration, don't you expect the items
Yes.
made in China on the sidewalk, made in Honduras on all these street corners? But I found the store making it in America. So that's what this was. I brought you back some gifts. You guys can fight over them. But
also this a blanket.
Yeah, Whoopi already, she saw this earlier, so she wanted this. This was
Yeah,
the
Whoopi is a
sweatshirt.
sweatshirt. This is all presidential stuff.
Yeah, all presidential swag. Joy, look at this. Look at
My
this.
grandson. I'll take that for my.
And a blanket.
I like a
And
blanket.
a teddy bear.
The title is golf balls for Bill. I know he's a big golfer when you give him some time off.
Bill, we got balls for you.
They're American balls.
We found you some mall.
Speaking of which, you know,
Thank you.
But the question is that true for you all? Did that happen? Did your...
Was voted most likely to be interrupted on a panel.
And I have made sure that happens every day.
So I went to an all-girls high school, which I recommend to everybody who has a daughter if you can pull it off, because you don't have this distraction
The
from
pressure.
boys. So I was Miss Thing in high school,
She's
and
still
I
Miss
got
Thing,
this
see?
idea of
I
being
guess
Miss Thing.
And it has never left her.
And into college, so you don't get to shed and renew.
Important for parents or people, adults in that situation, to impart good values on kids in those years.
So for me, it helped me.
And can I just say, though, you can change from high school, because I never sat at the table with the cool girls.
With the cool girls.
I mean,
I was never cool. I was a nerd.
Cool girls in
I
high
was such
school.
a nerd in high school.
I was like splicing DNA and like
Don't-
AP Bio
yeah,
in
you
high
find
school.
that, though, right? Like
Anything
the
from
biggest
that.
nerds, the biggest, sort
Yeah,
of
they-
goofs end up having enormous success. Well,
funny,
Whoopi, you
right?
never went to high
I
school. You were
didn't go
like,
to high school, but so I have no experience with that.
So you're on a
When you're
first
playing
date?
Twister,
Yeah.
When I met Sal, it was the first question
Right
off.
out the gate.
Right at the gate, I was like, you ain't even asked me out yet. It is, you want to know about that. I asked him what his credit score was.
Did you really? Yeah, she went right for the
I went right for
but
it.
a board game, I mean, if I showed up with a board game, it depends on the board game. I guess if it's like,
checkers.
or if it's Clue,
Don't
and you
even
end up in
bring
the bedroom with
cookies
Miss Scarlet in the robe. We were saying, though, earlier, though, if you're playing like Sorry, or, it's not a way to kick things
and I
off.
think games bring out the worst in people.
The most important question that you need to ask is, how long is the longest relationship you've ever had? And do you watch Glee? Would be a good question. Just,
Or do you watch The View?
what have you. And my friends were like, why are you cowing down to this fear mongering? This man in Europe is kidnapped by ISIS sympathizers and is beheaded.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a debate we have every morning and all day long in the newsroom, is how much of that video, if any at all, are you going to show on the evening news that night? Because you have to be aware that that's part of a propaganda war going on.
What do you guys, so what's the debate?
Listen, I think we're very careful. I think, when there's a huge development, you have to explain what that development is, but you cannot be...
And that's why we talked about it yesterday.
you can't be gratuitous with it.
Right.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Now you have a special coming on. And it's a special about the Slenderman case.
Yeah, this was something. And Rosie, we've been journeying with this family for many, many weeks now, all summer long. And a courageous family. This is a mom and dad, very involved with their children. And a typical Friday night in America, they were sending their daughter on a sleepover. They knew one of the girls, that the house she was going to, they knew her well. She'd come to their house for sleepovers. They knew the parents. It was a birthday party at roller skating. And so they sent their daughter, and as you know, she didn't come home the next day. They get the call, and she'd been taken into the woods and stabbed 19 times. These girls told police that they did this to her to impress a character on the internet, a fictional character named Slenderman. And I talked to the parents, and here's what they talked about.
The clip from the first time, they talking about the first time they saw their daughter, right?
In the hospital. Here's what they said. But she saw you there.
And I rushed over to her, but I could see that she was covered in stab wounds.
Where on earth do you think she got the strength to crawl out of those woods?
She said I wanted to live.
Oh my God.
How is she doing today? How is their daughter doing today?
Well, she's 12, and you'll meet her in this hour. She's going to have a struggle her whole life because of what happened, but she's also one of the strongest little girls you will ever meet. Her smile has returned. They told me that was their biggest fear, was that this beautiful smile had been stolen from their daughter. So we'll show you what makes her smile again. And I have to say that these parents, because of the way this family is and how loving they are, they told me, we think about those other parents too. We think about those other parents too.
Those two girls must be mentally ill. how do we treat mentally ill children?
And how do we open up a conversation, not only with our children, because it's not just one computer in the home anymore, where you say, here are the rules of the internet. You send them to bed, they have the phone, they're texting, they're emailing. So we go into schools across America, a classroom 900 miles away, and we ask the kids, the parents allowed us in, how many of you have heard of Slenderman? Everyone in the class raised their hand.
Wow.
The parents were listening with headphones out in the hall. So everyone in that class knew this fictional character.
Had no idea, though.
Yeah.
Parents had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, and it's not blaming Slenderman or these fictional characters. It's just creating a conversation not only with your children, but with the parents of your children's friends, without putting them on a defensive, but just say, you know, what are your kids fearful of on the internet?
And also paying attention. I mean, you've got to know what your kids are doing.
Points, Heroin in America is an eye-opening 2020 special that airs tonight, where David Muir exposes just how bad this country's drug problem has gotten. Please welcome David Muir. How are you?
Always great to come on. Yeah. This is so important, so thanks for having us on.
Why not?
And the numbers are staggering. Think about this. Every day in America, 129 people die from a drug overdose that is largely related to heroin or prescription pills. That's more people dying than from car accidents and from guns in this country because of prescription pills and heroin. It's a huge problem.
It's a huge problem. A lot of it's coming in from Mexico. You've been, like you said, working on the story for over a year. You've are dealing with heroin addiction over the last year.
Initially came in, and they're still coming in from Mexico. They find their way to big urban centers like New York City, and then straight up 95 into some of these New England towns. Manchester, New Hampshire is just one example. But now they're so sophisticated south of the border. It's almost like big pharma.
How do they get it in this country?
That's the big question. That's the big question. It's not that hard.
So if Donald builds this wall he keeps talking about, will that keep the drug?
Listen, there are a lot of people who think the wall would help. There are a lot of people who say that's one of the solutions, but the big debate now, though, is not drug and law enforcement, but how do we help these communities because they're being ravaged. And it's all over suburban America. And we have a clip of that SWAT team in action and what they're doing with 11 and 12-year-olds now. Let's take a look.
And if you think that's not my family, we've met so many parents, families, blindsided. See, there are no boundaries. Rich, poor, the middle class, pills, then heroin.
That's good.
As we go off, I really want to say, watching these clips, you know, a lot of times in the news, you always see black people being taken for drugs, and this is what's going on in the black community, but I didn't see any black people here.
That's a very important point to make. 90% of new heroin users are white, and it's suburban America, and what's behind it are these prescription pills. 4 out of 5 new heroin users begin on prescription pills, left in the medicine cabinet. It's an opioid fix, and when they can't get the pills anymore, the heroin is easier to find, cheaper to get on the streets.
David, kids are even being taught now how to deal with this epidemic at a school level. We have another clip from your special. Let's take a look.
In so many communities across this country, the needles are everywhere. Paramedic Chris Hickey shows us the needles, the toolkits they found, families discovering them.
You've got families calling you saying there are needles at the park, needles on the Little League field.
Yep, I'm gonna go up front here.
Which is why Chris is now teaching middle school students, 11 and 12 years old, how to use naloxone, or Narcan as it's called, to bring someone back from a heroin overdose.
How many of you have seen the needles?
The students have seen the needles everywhere.
These kids are 11 and 12 years old. That's where we are?
Yep.
And just look, this young girl practicing how to administer the drug to save someone, practicing on a teddy bear.
Oh, God.
Wow.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
It really is.
New Hampshire is the big state that's having troubles. And when you were doing the debate, when you were hosting the debates in New Hampshire, you asked the candidates, what are you going to do about this? And what did they say to you?
Well, they gave their answers, and they said more money has to go to this. We've got to help these communities. But I got to tell you, I think the families feel validated. The question was asked at the debates, but they're so frustrated with how quickly these answers go by. And what you'll see tonight, because these are very brave families who allowed us into their homes for more than a year, and even they couldn't predict where it would turn in their own family. And it's not always easy to watch. It will be unsettling. It's an unvarnished look tonight. But these are families that are taking their communities back. They're not waiting for the government any longer. And people at home might say, 11, 12 years old, I don't want my kids exposed to that, even teaching them how to use that drug to bring someone back. But that's the reality that they're living in. They say it's like The Walking Dead.
But if you teach them early, they know not to do it later. They see the effects of what's happening with the older generation. I think it's wonderful that they're going into schools, and they need to bring this education into more schools in the inner city and the outer city as well. That needs to happen.
And no community is immune. And
no
that's
community is
heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the parents, I think I can't say enough that these parents, these moms and dads who said it would never happen to my child, they raised them in loving homes, And in many ways tonight, you'll see love sometimes isn't enough.
They need to stop them coming in from Mexico. That's the main thing. Stop it.
Such an important conversation, though, that we need to have in our homes right now. Is right about this.
And thank you for bringing this up for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Good to see you.
And thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Joy.